and welcome back to the Ask Box for episode 4. I'm really excited to have the singer of our very own theme song, Steph Knipe of Adult Mom, and they are going to be talking about their experiences on Tumblr music fandom. All right, thanks so much for coming on the show, Steph.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Um, so if you want, can you just, tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, yeah, my name is Steph. I am in a band called Adult Mom, and I have been on Tumblr for a decade, which is crazy to say and think about. Yeah,
Uh,
that's my intro. That's me.
when did you first join? Do you remember?
Yes, August of 2009.
Oh wow, yeah. What was the inciting event? What made you sign up for that account?
um, okay, so I was really into this band, Bright Eyes.
Uh-huh.
um, and was kind of like searching all over the internet to find like information about the band, and then like
Mhm.
stumbled upon like a fan Tumblr blog for Bright Eyes, and I was like, "Whoa, I gotta do that. I gotta join."
Do you remember what that blog specifically was called or who it was run
Oh
by?
my god, no. But it was definitely something really, really, really silly, and like definitely like called something like Conor Oberst forever or something.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's amazing. I feel like that's early on how a lot of people found Tumblr is just through Googling, and it's what comes up when
Yeah.
you search someone specific. That's how I found it.
Mhm.
Um, so when you joined, what was your first URL?
Okay. So again, connecting with the bright eyes thing,
Mhm.
my URL was eyesarebright.tumblr.com.
That's amazing. It's a great URL.
Yeah.
And what were the first blogs that you followed other than that first one that you found?
Well, okay, so I found that, and then I feel like it was my friend's blog. I started then following like a bunch of people who were on like being reposted on that blog, and like
Uh-huh.
people that I still know. So like my friend, my two friends, Katie's, like two Katies, um, this person called Cherokee, and like Nikki, like literally like a web of like 6 or 7 people. Um,
And those were the people that were the most actively posting about Bright Eyes on Tumblr at the time.
yes, yes,
It was like a small community.
yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that early on. What do you remember about the way that Tumblr worked back in those days? Was it mostly just reblogs back and forth?
Yeah, I well now I'm trying to think like cuz that was when like Tumblarity was still a thing, if you remember
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So like whatever, like the statistics of like your posts and
Mhm.
stuff. So like but yeah, back then I feel like it was treated a lot like a message board, you know? So like
Interesting.
we would like blog or whatever, like cuz there wasn't like a question. I don't think there was an ask box yet or anything. So we would
Wow,
just
yeah.
like reblog and like have conversations like throughout the reblog process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In that era of Bright Eyes, had like a new album just come out?
It was right before their like last album came out, which I think maybe came out in 2010, but I got to check.
So what was the atmosphere like on the site when that album came out?
Pretty hectic and like very oh yeah, yeah. Okay, The People's Key came out in 2011, so it was a little bit later. But it,
Uh-huh.
it was definitely like because I think okay when The People's Key came out, which was in 2011, and like I was in my Bright Eyes fandom heyday in like 2009 and 2010, like early.
Uh-huh.
And so at that point I feel like everyone had kind of like moved on or like stepped back a little bit from like being
Uh-huh.
super crazed about the band. But it definitely like I feel
Yeah.
like it brought us all back.
Oh. I mean, I feel like so much fandom activity happens in the spaces between,
Mhm.
so it makes sense that a huge amount of fandom activity would have been happening like in between album releases because that is when I guess the fandom creative mind is like the most fertile because there's nothing else to do.
Exactly. And also you're like more starved for community because like yeah, like Bright Eyes had been kind of idle for a couple years. And so it's like also we were all none of us were teenagers when they were like actually touring and like a famous band, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Cuz like they I mean like Casadega came out in 2007 and that was kind of like the last thing until 2011. So like we kind of missed like that whole wave of stuff for the band. And so we were just like clutching at like we just like wanted to talk about the band, wanted to talk about Conor Oberst, like didn't have any other outlet besides each other.
Mhm. And I can imagine that yeah, like coming in during that time meant that the band wasn't a hot topic on like any critical websites. There wasn't that much like professional level content to consume, I guess. So, it's good that
Mhm.
you guys had that space to congregate sort of in the absence of any like actual activity.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
So, I don't know that much about Bright Eyes. So they didn't break up, but they just went on hiatus and then came back for one last album.
I think so. Well, I guess kind of what happened is that like so like Bright Eyes like did their like last album like Casadega, and then Conor Oberst like started like did a solo record, and then had like another band called the Mystic Valley Band,
Uh huh.
and like toured with them and did that for a few years, and then came back with a Bright Eyes record.
Did he tour that last Bright Eyes record at all?
Yeah, yeah, I was on. That's the only time I've seen Bright Eyes. I saw that tour.
So was it a big thing in your online community that everybody, finding this thing reawakening, went to these shows?
Oh yeah. Like and I remember like we would like call each other at the show and like
Mhm.
record like our like people like just like hold the phone out like for our friends like favorite songs and stuff like
Aw,
that. I
that's
know.
really cute. Did the fan community grow at all on Tumblr in between when you joined and when the album came out, or was it mostly the same group of people?
You know, it probably grew, but I think it at least like in our little group, like it kind of remained the same throughout
Mhm.
the years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were some other bands that you posted about, in that sort of high time of 2009, 2010?
Well, definitely. So, like, it was all about like the set, like Saddle Creek and like old Saddle
Mhm.
Creek bands and like early Rilo Kiley and
Mhm.
like all of Jenny Lewis's stuff, like Azure Ray, Cursive, um, so like all of the kind of like original Saddle Creek bands were, and obviously Conor Oberst like side projects and stuff.
Mhm.
Like we were really, really, really into the Mystic Valley Band and like all the people who were a part of that project.
Uh-huh. What was the main I mean, coming from, like it's interesting, like, coming from I've been in music fandoms, but that was only, like, after I was on Tumblr, I guess, and at least, like,
Hmm.
early on. So, like, my experience early on with Tumblr was mostly, TV and movies. So I'm interested to know, like, what were the things that you made? What did you make, like, gifs of videos of the band? Like, was there graphic activity in the way that
Hmm.
there was in TV fandoms with people, like, cutting and pasting pictures together in Photoshop? Like, production-wise.
Oh yeah, I think there was a lot of like meme making.
Mm,
So like a lot of like jokes that were made about like melodramatic lyrics and stuff like
uh-huh.
that. So like kind of like poking fun, probably mostly at ourselves. Yeah, like I remember like a lot of memes.
What are
And
I'm
then
interested to know, like, what are the specific memes and catchphrases that you remember?
well, like okay, it's hard to describe, like like the old meme format where it's like the vector like background. It's like a photoshopped face in the middle, and then there's like the two
Oh, yeah,
impact
the
spots.
advice animal.
Yes, like
Yes,
that kind of format, like
the
that
advice
was
animal.
that. Yes, and like so that was like the format, but
Uh-huh.
and again, like I was not like Photoshop savvy per se, but like all the other people would like make like cut out like Conor Oberst's face from like on Photoshop and like put it in the middle of like yeah, that. And then just like put like I can't even remember like literally just like the like silliest like most dramatic lyrics like over it, but like obviously make it sound funnier.
Uh-huh.
I want to like really find, I wish I can remember.
I wanna see one of these, that'd be funny.
I know. I honestly was searching like before to like prepare. I was
Uh-huh.
like, I have to find those memes. And they're like wiped from the internet,
No.
seemingly. I know.
Um,
It's,
so most of the other people, this was sort of like their main thing, or did you get glimpses of any of the other Tumblr fandoms through your friend's activity? Just because I know that I was, not aware that there was like a whole music side of Tumblr around this time. So I'm interested if you had any like peripheral awareness that people were like screaming about Doctor Who just a few clicks away.
yeah. I mean, there was like, I think there was some crossover stuff with that.
Mhm.
But also, I'm trying, like, I think too at this point, like Doctor Who and like whatever, like Supernatural, like
Mhm.
those fandoms were not at all in my sphere until like I kind of like got out of the Bright Eyes fandom
Right.
and like extended or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think I'm trying to remember um a lot of the there was definitely like a bleed into like film Tumblr.
Okay.
Like everyone was really into well like David Lynch Tumblr. Like everyone
Okay.
was really into Twin Peaks and like that type of stuff,
All right. Yeah, that's an interesting crossover. Makes sense. But there was
Yeah, for sure.
enough, Saddle Creek content to sustain a sort of vibrant community at that time.
Yeah, which is kind of shocking too because I mean, again, like most of these bands were dormant like at that time.
Uh-huh.
Like and like yeah, like almost all I think maybe all of the bands were like not touring, not making records. Like it's even like Rilo Kiley had already kind of I think almost broken up at that point.
Uh-huh.
Um but like like it was all that we talked about.
Yeah.
Now I remember like it's like all this stuff is kind of like embarrassing kind of, but it's
That's
fine.
that's what this is
There was
about.
like I know. There's like on Conor Oberst's birthday, like 1 year, I remember again I must have been like 15. We all of us stayed up like all night to like like literally commemorate the birthday, and we're just like posting our favorite lyrics and our favorite pictures. And like I also will stress that there was always a group like Skype message happening
Uh-huh.
like while we were blogging.
I like that. Sort
So
of like a dual carriageway fandom design.
mhm. It was like we were in like had to constantly talk no matter what.
Uh-huh. And I think that's amazing. It's also there's such a difference, I think, between fans and fandom. I mean, Bright Eyes as a band obviously was popular and like had a lot of fans and still has a lot of fans. But,
Mhm.
I feel like this specific fandom activity, it may have been this like special and unique moment in time because it requires so many elements to like happen. It requires a lot of young people with time on their hands. It requires
Mhm.
them all to meet each other, to like each other, and be willing to, and also have a platform to sort of, put their love through that is amenable to
Yeah.
that kind of communication. So I think this may have been that point in time where this was like an emergent phenomenon.
Yeah. And also, I think, and this was like the reason why I think I attached myself so much to the band was like, you know, I was like massively depressed and like a
Mhm.
14, 15-year-old kid,
Mhm.
like lost. And like, so was everybody else,
Right.
you know? So like, everyone was experiencing like levels of depression and anxiety and like isolation and like coming home from school and like just like literally having nobody to talk to.
Right.
And so it's like at least once I found everybody, i I like literally have a journal entry like open from 2009, like when I found the community.
Uh-huh.
And like I like wrote in my journal, I was like, I can't believe like I finally met people that like care about things that I care about, and like I have people to talk to when I get home from school now, like,
Oh,
you
that's
know.
that's such a beautiful thing. I think Tumblr for so many kids exactly that age, that's what it was. It was this lifeline. Especially, I think we must be right around the same age. I'm 23.
Yeah,
But
I'm turning 25.
yeah, so it's just like for that it's like that weird transition between junior high and high school. Things are changing. People are trying so hard to be adults at that point. And it's
Mhm.
just like finding Tumblr right at that time is this huge thing. I think a lot of people our age can point to that, especially ones who are like engaged in creative pursuits to this day.
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
proof that you didn't have to be a part of like whatever bullshit was happening, socially at
Mhm.
school if you didn't want to be. Like there were alternatives.
Mhm. For sure. And like that was honestly like, it's like I make so many jokes about like 2009 Tumblr and like like how ridiculous and kind of evil it was. But it like legitimately like saved my life in a lot of ways,
Uh-huh.
because like you know, I didn't like connect with anybody at school.
Right.
Like I was like I having a really hard time, and like finally, yeah, it was like this like big beautiful light of like internet community. And like I've always been like in internet communities. Like when MySpace was around, I
Yeah,
was in
absolutely.
like the like the Panic at the Disco fucking fandom on MySpace. But it's like MySpace went away, and like there wasn't like I didn't notice or see any like fandom on Facebook when that came.
No,
And so
yeah, definitely not.
there was like a gap, and then finally I feel like Tumblr kind of reignited like all that stuff.
It's interesting that you went from MySpace to Tumblr. I've talked to a lot of people that have gone from LiveJournal to Tumblr. Me personally, I think
Mm.
I went straight from a Warrior Cats roleplay board to Tumblr. That's neither here nor there.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I was a moderator. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, but I mean, there was a while there. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a right away. It was like there was a while there where I just couldn't find a place to be. And
Mhm.
Tumblr, very quickly became that place. And that's the thing. Like, if you were on Tumblr and you were posting, you had everything in common with the other people on there because they too were
Mhm.
on Tumblr and they were posting
Mhm.
instead of doing whatever else 14, 15-year-olds are doing.
Exactly. Cuz also like this was the whatever the age of Tumblr where like yeah, like people were joining specifically. I think we're like joining for fandom.
Absolutely.
Like, and it was really 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 easy to get in to the group because I mean they were like a lot less people on the platform in
Oh,
general,
for
you know.
sure. This is when, like 1,000 notes was a lot and
Mhm.
like 100
Yeah.
followers was a lot.
Well, I was just thinking like about um like it's like I met all those people through that fandom, but also I was like as I got like I like grew up like on the website in a way.
Mhm.
And it's like once I was like a senior in high school, like I was like, wow, I was such a fucking nerd like 3 years ago or whatever.
Right.
And it's like even now, like I'm like, well, obviously, like a decade ago,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, honey. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like funny too to be able to, and again, I think this is like true of a lot of Tumblr users. It's like you're there's like a long period of time that you were on that website and you can like literally see your like weird feelings and growth like tracked.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such an archive. I think, and also, yeah, like the mechanics of posting and reblogging lend itself to discovery. I mean, because Tumblr is such a content based site, versus something like LiveJournal that really just encourage people to like write their own stuff. Whereas Tumblr, there's a lot of regurgitation, but
Mm,
that in itself is a method of discovery because you find one person that posts about something you're interested in, and then when you follow them you see everything they post, not just what you're
mhm,
interested in. and
mhm.
and it's that sort of like taste making infrastructure that I think like so many people of our era have like formed their identities around. Like I wouldn't have watched
Completely.
Twin Peaks if it wasn't for Tumblr.
Completely same, like a million percent. And like I also wouldn't have found out about like a lot of things like if it
Oh
was
yeah.
like I feel like it's like hard to even think about like I mean in like music specifically like you know outside of like bright eye stuff like and I when I started to talk to more people and like be interested in things besides one
Hmm.
band like like I yeah like everyone like people were showing me like Radiohead and like whatever was like popular then like Animal Collective stuff
Yeah.
and like but like basically like 2010 indie like Pitchfork stuff
Hmm.
and um I was like literally blown away. Like didn't know that there was all these like interesting things in the world. And I guess even more shocking was like nobody, in my high school seemingly was interested in any of that stuff. So it was like kind of
Right.
shocking to see like all these kids my age, like here's this weird shit that I like.
Right, right. It was so, I mean, I can't even imagine what it would have been like for me if I had had to like just be with the people I was with in real life every day, like high school wise. Like the only reason I was able to tolerate it and even enjoy it at times was because I knew I could go home and turn on my
Mhm.
computer. Like it was like a sort of like a positive reinforcement thing.
Oh
Um
yeah.
Also, I think it's interesting to point out that 2009, 2010 was sort of right before the rise of like when kids that age were getting smartphones. Like to go on Tumblr, I
Mhm.
would go home and turn on my computer.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like it was a very physical, almost devotional act.
Mm. No, that is so like yes, exactly. Like it's so like rich it's like a ritual. Like I
Yes.
remember like I would like yeah, like come from school, like take my backpack off, like run up the stairs, like open my computer and like log in.
Yes. Exactly. And I mean, it's, the dashboard itself is sort of like,
Mm.
an altar. Okay, now I'm getting into grad
No,
school
I love
territory.
it.
I need to shut
I
up.
love it.
um, but like, having it be, like the theme song, full screen on your computer rather than like scrolling on your phone. I think that's a huge distinction. I mean, I remember when the Tumblr mobile app came out, it was like a huge deal. But I
Oh
did
yeah.
feel like that was going to change the relationship that teenagers especially had with the website.
Yeah, and yeah, because there's the separation is gone.
Right.
Like you can blog from school and
Right.
like you can be connected at all times, which like again, like, there's definitely a beauty to that aspect of it.
Mhm.
But it does kind of take away like just like the separation of space. It's like, you know, it's like you're at school all day or whatever you're doing as a teen and then it's like you have like finally a relief and like I feel like it's more intimate and more powerful when it's just you alone in your room. looking
Yes.
at
Yeah.
stuff. Because I also,
Yeah.
when the Tumblr app came out, I was horrified to look at it, like,
Uh-huh.
anywhere
It's
else.
still ugly as shit.
Yeah, it's ugly. But also I was like, "Oh my god, like, people are gonna, like, post porn or, like or, like,
Right.
people are gonna find." Oh my god, I was so stressed about people finding out that I had a Tumblr.
Really?
I was
What was
so
that like? Did
scared.
you like went to great lengths to conceal it?
Yeah, like, I think for a minute, it was, like, password protected,
Uh-huh.
um, but then I kinda stopped doing that, but I was, like, yeah, I was horrified that people from my high school would find it and, like, discover my, like, secret double life.
I think that's like a very also very important component to those early days cuz these days everybody has every social media and that is known and people, can find it or at least at the very least know that you have it because it's assumed. But
Mhm.
like 10 years ago, it's like if you didn't tell people you had a Tumblr, there's no way they would know.
Exactly.
It wasn't that sort of it didn't hold the same place in the teenage identity as like an Instagram does today for sure.
Definitely. Because,
And that's
like,
yeah.
well, you had your public, or at least, like, I had my public social media. Like, I
Uh-huh.
had Facebook
Right.
and, like, maybe Twitter, but, like, that was it. And it was, like, those were the places where, I would be, a quote unquote normal person.
Yeah.
And then I would, like, pull the sheet and, like, literally, like, kind of under the covers go to Tumblr and, like, actually be my true self. And, like, there's, like, that whole modality is, like, super queer. Like, in
Yeah.
like, it's like, oh, like, you know, like, there's a space for me to, like, experiment and, like, whatever, probably
Yeah.
definitely have, like, gay feelings and, like, do
Uh-huh.
things. And yeah, and it's like, yeah, this, like, under this, yeah, like, under this, like, little blanket for it,
Yeah.
and
I mean, it's a
nobody else knew.
sanctuary.
Mhm. For
Especially
sure.
back then, it was a sanctuary. I think, to some degree, it probably still is today for the people who like want to use it that way. But
Mhm.
back then, the way in which you were encouraged to use it was much more restricted to like this is a private fun thing. Like that's how everybody was using it.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. It's so beautiful.
I think yeah, it was really beautiful. And then I think as the site became more popular, that aspect of it kind of lessened, which is to be expected. Like I remember noticing like in 2011 that there were a lot more people on the website than there used to be and kind of
Mhm.
being like, "Oh, like I didn't know how to feel about that." There was like that whole panic about like people you knew getting Tumblrs.
Yes! Oh my god, I remember that. Yeah, because I would always be like, "Oh, no, like, they're gonna find mine, like, it's
Right.
gonna happen." And also, like, there was, like, a sense of pride, maybe, like, I don't know if you felt this, but it's, like, this sense of pride of, like, I've been on this website since 2009, like,
Uh-huh.
it's, like, I know what Tumblrity is, like, you fools don't even remember
Uh-huh.
the hell, like, you have
Yeah.
no idea. And then, like, yeah, like, it started to get more popular and it was, like, more mainstream, and I was, like, there was, like, I felt like, just, like, protective, I was like,
Oh yeah, territorial, absolutely.
definitely.
And there was that sort of sense that, what you were doing, it wasn't like that you should be embarrassed about it. I don't think that was it. I think it was this that yeah, it was something to be protected and something to be kept safe because I
Mhm.
don't think there was quite like a verbalization of what would happen, but it was sort of this knowledge that yeah, I don't know, like this like in group out group thing where you're just like what I'm doing is not what everybody else is doing and that makes me,
Mhm.
different, special, whatever.
And also it's like, I that is so real. And also I
Mhm.
felt like, because I was felt so isolated and outcasted and whatever, it's like these, like, people who were, you know, like quote unquote normies, or like, you know, like mean people in high school, were like getting them in senior year.
Yeah.
And I was like, you clowns, like, were the reason why I got this to, like, in the first place. Like, I'm trying to escape this. And like, now it's becoming, you know, what I
Right.
was, what, you know, now it's just like Facebook. And like, now I have to perform again and like,
Right.
you know,
It's
like
sort
be
of like,
someone I'm
yeah,
not.
offensive to the soul. Um, something I'm interested in, when I was on Tumblr, I was like a fan of, films and TV and fictional things. But, you as a fan and in a fandom of like real people, I know teenagers can be crazy about that sort of thing. So like, what was the relationship that you had with like Conor Oberst as a person? Like, were you protective of him, and like, did people ever toe the line and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely as a teen. I mean, like, I was like very protective and like, you know, I like, I feel like my attachment to it was like I had like like long blog posts, like journal entry, like blog posts that were just like, he
Hmm.
is like the savior of music. Like, just like very like, I like, he, to me, he was like an icon, you know what I
Right.
mean? And so, I mean, definitely a lot of projections going on with that. Like,
Uh-huh.
like whatever, like, you know, like not super great like ways to engage with people, like,
Right.
and now it's, you know, Conor Oberst is a literal like a human being, but it's
Right.
like, and like, you know, but it's like back in the day it was like, no, like he is like superior, like on a pedestal, like
Totally.
untouchable. um and I used to get made fun of so much in high school for liking Bright Eyes and stuff. And again, it was like a secret, but like if people would find out, like I would literally get bullied for
No.
it. I know, it's like sad. I'm like, you know, it's just, you know, relax. But yeah, like people, yeah, you know, like, and I would like, my friends would like jab at me like as a joke, but like I was like so offended because I was like, you know, like this is like the first time I've ever heard lyrics that like talk openly about depression and like
Uh-huh.
things that matter. Like it was like a revolution for me. Like, and I was like, oh my God, like you're literally stripping away like everything that I care about, like with your stupid joke. Like, so protective
You take
about
it so
it.
personally.
Oh
Back,
yeah.
when you're young, it's just like if they insult your favorite thing, they insult you directly. Might as well be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it's like a kick in the face. It's like, that's my prized possession. Like, what are you talking about?
right. Yeah. I think and if people yeah, so I can see how it would be scary to imagine people finding the Tumblr in the sort of golden days of that Tumblr fandom. People had similar relationships to the band and to Connor that you empathize with.
Yeah. And like, yeah, everyone had definitely like a super big admiration. But I really remember this too, of like, there were certain people in the fandom who were like way, 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 way over the top, like
Mhm.
about it. And like, you know, almost like definitely like crossing the line of like, you know, someone who I admire, and then like like I really feel like some people were like literally convinced themselves that they were like actually in love, like viscerally, like with this person.
Uh-huh.
And I
I mean,
was,
that is the danger of any like real person fandom, including like actors and TV shows and stuff like that.
yeah, and it's like, you know, that's like kind of that, I mean, you know, it's scary. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like gonna blame like 14-year-old girls like for, because, you know, I was a part of it.
Right.
But like thinking now, I'm like, you know, it was so innocent and there was nothing that was like dangerous about it. But, you know, like you're an artist and a person who like definitely didn't want to be, you know, like heroicized in any way or like projected on. And but it's like the
Yeah.
nature of fame or whatever it is. Yeah.
I also think that specifically, Bright Eyes as an object of affection, because the lyrics speak so much to things that people in your community experienced. It was that sort of
Mm-hmm.
transference that was much easier to slip into maybe than in other fandoms where the narrative was more complex or fictional or totally separate from the lived experiences of the fans.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I mean, yeah, that's what made it so intense. I feel like an intimate
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
because it was like, I feel like everyone kind of had that idea of like, this man understands me.
Like he's talking
Like,
directly to me.
exactly.
Whereas like in a TV show, it's like, okay, well, there's one layer of separation, which is like the script and the narrative, which
Mm-hmm.
is fictional.
Mm-hmm.
But with Bright Eyes, yeah, it's like it's so close. It's like right up on that edge of like an actual conversation.
Mm-hmm. And and there's so many like sonic things about it, like, hit like a lot of the music is, stripped down
Hmm.
and like, uses like you pronoun, like it's like it's like he's writing a letter kind of, and
Right,
it's like
right.
it's so easy to like put yourself, like as the person that, he's talking about or whatever. It's like, you know and I think it's like that's, I think, what the most amazing thing about that band was like
Hmm.
how everyone in that project, like even outside of Connor, like created like intimate space with like the music and like the instruments and everything.
Yeah.
Like it like brought, yeah, it made you feel like you were there. And like that's, I don't know, I feel like that's like a really rare experience to have as a person, like ever. Like especially
And
maybe now.
yeah, I mean, and also so formative if you're connecting with it at like an impressionable age.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of music and like sharing music, was there like a culture of like uploading MP3s and sharing rarities and stuff and diving like really deep into the catalog?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, because oh my god, it's like funny. It's like before Spotify and whatever.
Right.
But yeah, like yeah, and like that was like Tumblr wasn't regulating audio posts at that point.
Right.
So yeah, everyone would up you could upload anything ever. Like people would just have like threads of like full albums and stuff.
Mhm.
And or like yeah, I remember there was like, like live bootleg recordings that people would just like go to shows and then just like upload it, and it sounded so bad, but like it was so exciting, like just like like or like a new song, or you know what I mean, like it's so
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, I mean the thrill of something that you haven't heard before, even if it's a song you know by heart.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Oh
one of
yeah.
the joys of music fandom, which is not something I figured out until I was maybe 18 or 19 when I was in my first band fandoms, but just like I before that, I could never figure out, what was so exciting about being a fan of a band and like sharing the same songs that you've heard over and over. And then when it kicked in for me, I was like, "Oh my god, this is so different than any other fandom I've been in before. It's such a different modality of expression of and it was not, it's not something, anything I can explain why it's exciting to hear a
Mm-hmm.
different version of a song that you know. It just is.
Mm-hmm. It just is, and it's like it it's also just like, when someone posts like whatever, a live recording or a demo or
Uh-huh.
whatever that you haven't heard before, it's like the entire community of people is like, yes, like something to get super stoked on right now. Like, and it's like kind of that experience. It's like, yes, like another thing, like we can all be excited about it. Like we can
Yeah.
all just like have this constant reblog loop of like, wow, this
Uh-huh.
is so amazing. Yeah, it's like it's total influx of joy, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, Tumblr lends itself to that um sort of insane hunger to be excited
Mm-hmm.
because of that community aspect and because it's so fun to feel emotions alongside others who are feeling those same emotion. I mean, that's why it's fun to be at a concert. But if you can't be at a
Mm-hmm.
concert, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe the next best thing is just like endless reblock chains. And so you know that everybody else who's online with you is feeling the exact same things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, you know, we would do a lot of like group listenings of like records.
Hmm.
Um and like there's like a documentary that came out called One of My Kind, and it's about like the Mystic Valley band, and like we all like pressed play at the same time and like watched it together.
Yeah.
Um and like yeah, it's like, and like, you know, or like Skype, like video chat like while
Yeah.
watching, and you know, like it's like all those things of like exactly like having that human connection, you know, that you like all of us were obviously like
Yeah.
desperate for.
Oh, yeah.
and and I think about a lot too about how maybe that like made the band more important to us, is like, yeah, like the music was amazing, but the community was what was actually amazing. And so it like made us love the band way more, or like it made the band much bigger. You
Right.
know what I mean?
You know, maybe it's something that happened to occur around that band, but it was maybe just more a function of what the community needed from each other at that time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really beautiful. So you guys all still keep in touch?
Yeah, I it's like last summer, or no,
Mhm.
sorry, last a year ago, I was on tour, and I was in Portland,
Mhm.
Oregon, and uh four of my friends from that community who I had never met before like surprised me and like showed up at our show. I know.
Aw, that's
I was like a
amazing.
mess.
Oh my gosh.
I was like crying. And also like the other, I mean, like the other layer of all of this was like I was also like, that's how I learned how to play guitar, like through learning Bright Eye songs, and like
Uh-huh.
that's I was like posting covers, and like, you know, like that's how I started to play. And so
Yeah.
like those people had literally been there the entire time and had seen every step of the process. So
Uh-huh.
it was like it's like more emotional than like almost like a family member going to a show, because you're like, you literally have been there since the
Yeah.
beginning.
I can imagine. Do you know if Conor Oberst has heard your music?
I don't know. Like, you know, maybe. Again, I guess there's not that many degrees of separation.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
that's
say,
what's
like,
kind of funny, you know. But that's what's so like ridiculous about it now is like, you know, I would not say that we're peers in any way, but like, you know, we're in like it's like not that far away from me at this point. And
right.
like definitely like it's embarrassing to talk about, because I'm like, like I am like a professional musician now, and like, you know, like I
Yeah.
don't want to sound like a like crazy obsessed fan. And like, but you know, obviously as an adult, like I'm
Right.
able to feel way less, you know,
Yeah.
crazed, or you know,
You
more
know,
humanized about
remember where you come from,
it.
etc. I
Exactly.
think I feel a similar thing. I mean, especially when I was yeah, that I've had that moment a lot where it's like I'm meeting someone and they're the only reason that I'm there, you know. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, play it cool, and I have to respect my origins, and I have to respect, you know, what someone's work has done for me, and how far it has brought me.
Can I tell like a brief story about
Oh,
this exact?
absolutely.
I like, so that same tour, like we were on tour with Lucy Dacus,
Uh-huh.
and um she we played in Omaha, Nebraska,
Mhm.
which is like where Saddle Creek originated, and like
Mhm.
all of it. And I was like very excited about that. And it's also funny because I like know the people who run Saddle Creek now, and they're wonderful and like really nice, but whatever. But
Uh-huh.
like we were playing, like Amber and Rob from Saddle Creek were there, and we were hanging out.
Mhm.
And then like Mike Mogus, who is a member of Bright Eyes, but also is like a very like like a producer of like a million records that I
Mhm.
like am obsessed with, like
Uh-huh.
including Bright Eyes and like Brilo Kiley and like all that stuff. So like like he just like walked into the green room, and I was like, holy shit, like, but like definitely had to like play it cool and be like, oh my god, like nice to meet you, like
Uh-huh.
moment, and like, and then like we all like the whole touring crew like went to his studio the next day and just like walked around and stuff, and like again like everyone was like, this is cool, like very cool, and I was like, yes, very very cool, like interesting, awesome.
Mhm.
And then like we got back to the Airbnb and I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Like it was like so, it felt so full circle and also
Yeah.
just like so overwhelming. I was like, I need to I need to text everybody from this fandom community and be like, guess where I just was.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, yeah, I think that's a really incredible story, and it's something that I think a lot of people who choose to take a creative career path can relate to. Is like, once upon a time they were that fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really love to hear about all this stuff that I really did not know about.
Oh my god, thank you so much for having me and letting me just, you know, talk about silly things. I
No,
love it.
it's beautiful. Thank you, Steph. The Askbox theme song is by today's guest, Adult Mom. Please subscribe on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and tell your friends too. That would be super cool of you. Next week, we'll be talking Inception, so tune in.
Still the warmer months being